Ladirana la hija ciega como burla, pero el ladio unhagar y su apelido. In a quiet town where everyone knew each other's names and secrets, life moved slowly but people's words traveled fast. The town looked peaceful from the outside, with narrow streets, small houses, and familiar faces. Yet behind closed doors and polite smiles, judgment lived comfortably. People talked about everything, who failed, who succeeded, and who was different. And in that town, being different was never easy. One night, a baby girl was born into a family that was already struggling. The room was small, the light was weak, and fear filled the air. When the doctor gently spoke, the family's world changed. The baby could not see. She was blind from birth. At first there was silence. Then came worry, then panic, and finally shame. The family did not think about the baby's future with hope. They thought about what people would say. In that town, weakness was often treated like a curse. Instead of seeing the child as a life that needed love, many saw her as a problem. Relatives whispered. Neighbors shook their heads. Some even said cruel things, as if the baby could hear and understand. The family felt judged before the child had even taken her first breath at home. As days passed, the pressure grew heavier. The family felt trapped by fear and social shame. They believed raising a blind child would bring endless hardship and public pity. Instead of asking how to protect her, they asked how to hide her. The idea slowly formed, encouraged by cruel minds, that the child should be given away. In the same town lived a man most people ignored. He was quiet, kept to himself, and lived a simple life. He had no wife, no children, and no strong family connections. People often mocked him behind his back, calling him lonely and strange, even though he had never harmed anyone. He worked hard, spoke politely, and never responded to insults. His silence made people think he was weak. One evening, a group of relatives from the baby's family visited him. Their smiles were fake, their words sweet but empty. They pretended to show concern, but their true intention was cruel. They offered him the blind baby, not as an act of kindness, but as a joke. They believed giving him the child would ruin his quiet life and make him an object of laughter. In their minds, they were passing their burden and creating a new story to gossip about. The man listened without interrupting. He looked at the baby sleeping in her thin blanket. She was small, fragile, and unaware of the heavy decisions being made around her. While others saw darkness, he saw innocence. He did not think about what people would say. He did not think about how hard life would be. He only felt something deep inside, something human. The room was silent as he held the baby carefully. Her tiny fingers moved slightly, searching for warmth. That simple movement touched his heart in a way words could not. For the first time in years, he felt needed. The people around him waited for his refusal. They expected him to protest or feel afraid. Instead, he surprised everyone. He agreed, not because he felt forced, not because he wanted approval. He agreed because he could not imagine turning away from a child who had already been rejected by the world. He did not argue or explain. He simply said yes and took the baby into his arms. The people who came with cruel intentions left confused, some even laughing quietly, thinking they had won. That night the man walked home slowly, holding the baby close to his chest. The streetlights flickered, and the town slept peacefully, unaware that a quiet miracle was beginning. His home was small, with old furniture and plain walls. But it was clean, warm, and safe. He placed the baby gently on a soft cloth and sat beside her for a long time, watching her breathe. He knew nothing about raising a child, especially one who could not see. Fear visited his mind, but it did not stay long. Love pushed it away. He spoke softly to her, even though she could not see his face. He told her she was safe. He told her she was home. His voice was calm, steady, and full of promise. The next morning, the town noticed something unusual. The quiet man was seen buying baby supplies. People stared. Some laughed. Others whispered. News spread quickly. He took the blind child, they said, shaking their heads. Why would he do that? Some felt sorry for him. Others mocked him openly, but he did not react. He walked with purpose, his back straight, his heart firm. Days turned into weeks. The man adjusted his life completely. He learned how to care for the baby, waking up at night, feeding her, comforting her cries. He paid attention to her sounds, her movements, her needs. Though she could not see his face, she recognized his presence. She calmed when he held her. She slept peacefully when he spoke. The town continued to judge. People assumed the child would suffer. They believed she would grow up unloved and limited. But inside that small home, something beautiful was forming. The baby was not treated like a burden. She was treated like a blessing. The man did not see her blindness as a weakness. To him, she was simply a child who needed guidance and care. Sometimes, late at night, he worried about the future. He wondered how he would provide for her education, her safety, her happiness. But every time fear tried to settle in, he looked at her peaceful face and felt strength return. He reminded himself that love did not require perfection, only commitment. What the town meant as a cruel joke slowly turned into a silent challenge. Without realizing it, the people had tested the man's character. And without making noise, without asking for praise, he was passing that test every single day. The baby, unaware of the pain that surrounded her beginning, slept peacefully in a home she could not see but could feel. And the man, once considered weak and lonely, found a purpose greater than any insult. This was not the start of a tragedy, as many expected. It was the beginning of a bond that would change both of their lives forever. The days after the man brought the baby home were filled with quiet challenges. Nothing dramatic happened at once. Life changed slowly, one small moment at a time. The baby cried often at night, and the man woke up every time. His sleep became short and broken, but he never complained. He learned to move gently, to listen carefully, and to understand her needs through sound and touch. At first, he felt unsure of himself. He had never held a baby for so long before. His hands were rough from work, and he worried he might hurt her. But with each passing day, his movements became softer and more confident. He learned how to hold her in a way that made her feel safe. When she cried, he spoke calmly. When she was quiet, he stayed near, listening to her breathing. The baby reacted strongly to voices. She did not turn her head the way other children might, but she responded to sound with small movements. When the man spoke, she relaxed. When his voice stopped, she became restless. Slowly, he understood that his voice was her guide. It was how she knew she was not alone. So he began to talk to her more. He talked while feeding her, while changing her clothes, and while carrying her around the house. He described simple things, the sound of rain on the roof, the warmth of the sun near the window, the smell of food cooking. He did not know if she understood the words, but he believed she felt the care behind them. Money was always a concern. The man did not earn much, and now there were more expenses. Milk, clothes, medicine, everything cost something. He took extra work when he could. Sometimes he returned home tired, his body aching. But the moment he heard the baby's soft sounds, his tiredness faded. She gave his life a new rhythm, one that felt meaningful. The neighbors continued to watch from a distance. Some shook their heads when they saw him carrying the child. A few offered advice, often in a judging tone. Others stayed silent but curious. They waited for him to fail. They believed it was only a matter of time before he gave up. But days turned into weeks, and the child stayed with him. One afternoon, an older woman from the neighborhood stopped him on the street. She looked at the baby for a long moment and then asked a simple question. "Why did you take her?" Her voice was not cruel, just confused. The man paused and answered honestly. He said because she needed someone. The woman said nothing more, but her eyes softened. It was the first time someone had looked at him with respect. At home, the man began to make small changes. He moved furniture to create more space. He kept the floor clear so the baby would be safe when she started moving on her own. He paid attention to sounds, noticing which ones made her calm and which ones made her uneasy. He learned that sudden loud noises frightened her, so he became more careful. As the baby grew, her personality slowly appeared. She smiled when she heard familiar voices. She reacted with excitement to gentle music. She liked being held close and felt comfort in steady movement. The man learned to understand her moods. He knew when she was hungry, tired, or simply wanted to be near him. Some nights were harder than others. There were moments when fear returned. The man worried about the future. He wondered how he would protect her from the cruelty of the world. He knew people could be unkind to those who were different. The thought made his chest feel heavy. But each time doubt appeared, he reminded himself that he could not control the world. He could only control how he treated her. He made a promise to himself. No matter what happened, the child would grow up knowing she was loved. She would never feel like a mistake. She would never feel unwanted. This promise became his strength. The baby's health worried him at times. He took her to a local clinic where the staff looked surprised to see him alone with a child. Some asked uncomfortable questions. Others offered support. The doctor confirmed what he already knew: her blindness was permanent. There was no cure. The man listened quietly. He did not ask why. He asked how to care for her better. The doctor explained the importance of routine, touch, and sound. The man paid close attention. He followed every piece of advice carefully. When they returned home, he felt more confident. Knowledge gave him courage. The town slowly began to change its tone. People still talked, but their words lost some of their sharpness. They saw that the man was serious. They saw the baby growing healthy and calm. Some even greeted him kindly. Children in the neighborhood became curious and waved at him when he passed. The man did not seek attention, but he noticed the difference. Inside the home, a quiet bond deepened. The baby recognized his footsteps. She reacted differently when he entered the room. She reached out when she heard him close. These small signs filled his heart with joy. They told him that his presence mattered. He began to imagine a future. He thought about teaching her to walk, to speak, to understand the world in her own way. He did not see limits. He saw possibilities. He understood that her path would be different, but different did not mean less. One evening, while holding her near the window, he spoke softly about the sky. He described it as wide and endless, even though she could not see it. He explained the idea of light, not as something the eyes see, but as something the heart feels. The baby made a small sound, almost like a laugh. The moment stayed with him for a long time. The people who once thought the child was a burden had unknowingly given the man a gift. Through her, he discovered patience, strength, and love he never knew he had. Through him, the baby found safety and belonging. This part of their story was not loud or dramatic. It was made of quiet choices, daily care, and steady commitment. While the world outside continued to judge and doubt, inside that small home, something powerful was growing. A family was forming, not by blood but by heart. As time passed, the baby grew into a small child, and the house that once felt empty now felt alive. Every corner held a sound, a movement, or a memory. The man's life no longer followed the quiet routine it once had. His days were shaped around the child, her needs, her safety, and her comfort. What once felt like responsibility now felt natural, like breathing. The child learned the world through touch, sound, and smell. She moved her hands carefully, feeling the shapes of objects around her. The man guided her gently, never rushing her. He allowed her to explore at her own pace. When she bumped into things, he did not scold her. Instead, he explained calmly where she was and what she had touched. Slowly, her confidence grew. He began to teach her simple words. He spoke clearly and patiently, repeating sounds until she copied them. Her first words were not perfect, but they were full of effort. Every small success filled him with pride. He celebrated quietly, hugging her close so she could feel his happiness even if she could not see it. The house became organized in a careful way. Furniture stayed in the same places. Objects were returned to where they belonged. This helped the child move freely without fear. The man understood that consistency gave her freedom. He did not want her to feel trapped or dependent. He wanted her to feel capable. Outside the home, the world was still uncertain. Some people were kinder now, but others still watched with doubt. When the man took the child outside, people stared. Children asked questions without understanding. Some adults whispered. The man kept walking, holding her hand firmly. He did not hide her. He believed hiding would only teach her shame. At the market, the child listened carefully to sounds, the voices of sellers, the movement of carts, the calls of birds. She asked questions in her own way. The man answered every one. He described faces, objects, and spaces. He did not feel tired of explaining. He felt honored to be her guide. As the child grew older, she began to notice differences between herself and others. She heard other children talking about colors, drawings, and games she could not see. One day, she asked a question that stopped the man in his tracks. She asked why she could not see like others. The man took a deep breath before answering. He did not want to lie. He knelt beside her and spoke gently. He explained that everyone is born different. Some people see with their eyes, others see with their minds and hearts. He told her that her way of understanding the world was special, not broken. He told her that she was complete. The child listened quietly. She did not fully understand, but she felt his honesty. She felt safe asking questions, and that mattered more than perfect answers. Teaching her independence became important to him. He encouraged her to do small tasks on her own, finding her shoes, pouring water carefully, walking short distances without help. When she struggled, he stayed close but did not take over. He wanted her to trust herself. There were days when progress felt slow. Some tasks took longer than expected. Sometimes the child became frustrated. When that happened, the man reminded her that learning takes time. He reminded himself of the same thing. Patience became their shared strength. One afternoon, while practicing walking outside, the child stumbled and fell. She was not hurt, but she was shaken. People nearby rushed forward, offering help. The man thanked them but knelt beside her first. He asked if she was okay and waited for her response. When she stood up on her own, he smiled with pride. That moment taught her that falling was not failure. It was part of learning. Inside the home, evenings were calm. The man often told her stories before sleep. He made up tales about brave characters who faced challenges and kept moving forward. He did not mention blindness or weakness. His stories focused on courage, kindness, and choice. The child loved these stories. They made her feel strong. The man also learned from her. He learned to slow down, to listen more deeply, and to notice details he once ignored. He learned that silence could speak loudly and that love did not need grand gestures. It lived in small, steady actions. As the child's world expanded, so did the man's responsibilities. He began thinking about education. He wanted her to learn, to grow, and to have opportunities. He asked questions, searched for guidance, and spoke to people who knew more than he did. Some doors were closed, but others opened slowly. A teacher from a nearby area heard about the child and offered advice. She explained ways the child could learn through sound and touch. The man listened carefully and practiced these methods at home. Learning became part of their daily life, not something separate. The town slowly adjusted to their presence. People became used to seeing them together. The child was no longer a rumor, she was a person. Some neighbors greeted her by name. A few even spoke directly to her, not around her. These small changes mattered. Still, not everyone understood. There were moments of discomfort and ignorance. The man prepared himself for those moments. He knew he could not control how others behaved, but he could control how he responded. He chose calm over anger, teaching the child by example. One evening, after a long day, the man sat quietly while the child played nearby. He listened to her movements, confident and curious. He realized how far they had come together. What started as an unexpected responsibility had become a shared journey. The child was no longer just surviving. She was growing, learning, and finding her place in the world. And the man, once seen as lonely and weak, had become something else entirely, a guide, a protector, and a steady presence. This stage of their lives was not free of difficulty, but it was rich with purpose. Every challenge strengthened their bond. Every step forward, no matter how small, felt like a victory. They were building more than skills and routines. They were building trust, and that trust became the foundation for everything that was still to come. The years passed, and the child continued to grow, slowly but steadily. Each day brought new experiences, small victories, and little lessons that shaped both her life and the man's. By now, she was no longer the fragile baby he had first taken into his home. She had become a lively, curious, and intelligent little girl, eager to explore her surroundings and learn about the world through her other senses. The man noticed that her confidence had grown immensely. She walked steadily, guided by her memory and touch, and recognized the layout of the house and nearby streets. She could identify objects by their shape and texture, and she recognized people by the sound of their voice and the way they moved. Her world, though different from that of other children, was rich and full of discovery. Every day, the man watched her with admiration, amazed at how she embraced life despite her limitations. He continued to teach her in simple but effective ways. He described everything around them in detail: the texture of the walls, the warmth of the sun, the gentle rustle of leaves, and even the aroma of flowers in the small garden outside. He wanted her to experience the beauty of life through senses other than sight, and he made it his mission to ensure that her world felt complete and vivid. Education became an important focus. The man wanted the child to have knowledge and independence. He began teaching her letters and numbers, reading aloud from simple books, and introducing tactile learning tools such as raised letters and objects she could touch. She responded with enthusiasm, eager to learn and discover. Slowly, she developed a hunger for knowledge, asking questions about everything she encountered. The man patiently answered, often improvising explanations to make abstract concepts tangible. He knew that even though she could not see, her mind could still grasp and understand the world if it was presented carefully. As she grew, the man realized the importance of preparing her for society. He taught her how to interact politely with others, how to respond to questions, and how to express herself clearly. He wanted her to be independent, confident, and proud of who she was. He encouraged her to be curious, to ask questions, and to explore, always reminding her that her blindness did not make her less capable. The child began to notice differences between herself and other children. She overheard conversations about playground games, colors, and pictures, things she could not see. One day, she asked a question that struck the man deeply. "Why can't I see like them?" He took her hands in his and spoke softly, carefully choosing his words. He told her that everyone has different abilities, and that being different does not mean being less. He explained that her mind, her heart, and her determination were her strengths, and that she could achieve many things if she believed in herself. The child listened quietly, absorbing his words, and slowly began to understand that her value was not determined by what she could or could not see. The man also understood that the child needed social connections beyond their home. He introduced her to children from nearby homes and encouraged supervised interactions. At first, it was difficult. Other children did not always know how to include her, and she sometimes felt shy. But with patience and practice, she learned to participate in games, follow instructions, and communicate with peers. The man watched proudly as she formed friendships, realizing that she was no longer isolated but becoming a part of the community in her own way. One of the most important steps the man took was to give the child his surname. He did this quietly but with determination. By giving her his name, he publicly acknowledged her as his daughter. It was an act of love and commitment, a declaration that she belonged to him and would never be cast aside. Some neighbors were surprised, others whispered, but the man did not care about their opinions. What mattered was that the child now had a sense of identity and belonging. With her new name came a new sense of security. The child felt pride in her identity, understanding that she had a home where she was valued and loved unconditionally. The man continued to protect her from gossip, judgment, and cruelty. He taught her to stand up for herself, to respond to unkind words with calmness, and to trust her own abilities. He became not just a parent but a mentor, shaping her character with patience, love, and wisdom. The man also made it a point to expose her to as many experiences as possible. He took her on walks through the town, describing shops, parks, and streets. He introduced her to animals, music, and nature, helping her create a mental map of the world. He encouraged her to explore safely, reminding her that mistakes were part of learning and growth. Each experience helped her become more independent, confident, and aware of the world around her. Education outside the home also became a priority. The man sought teachers and programs that could accommodate her needs. He worked tirelessly to ensure she had access to learning materials adapted for blind children, from tactile books to audio lessons. He taught her resilience, showing that obstacles could be overcome with determination, creativity, and support. The child thrived in this environment, developing skills that would help her navigate life successfully. Despite all the challenges, there were moments of joy and laughter. The child loved music, and the man introduced her to simple instruments, singing, and rhythms. She responded with delight, often clapping or moving her body in time to the music. These moments brought light into their home, reminding the man that life could be beautiful, even in the face of difficulty. He celebrated every smile, every laugh, and every small victory as if it were a triumph over the world's cruelty. The man's dedication did not go unnoticed. People in the town began to respect him more. They saw how committed he was to the child's well-being, how much care he poured into her daily life, and how he nurtured her growth. Slowly, whispers of admiration replaced whispers of mockery. Even those who had doubted him began to understand that love, patience, and determination could achieve what many thought impossible. As the child grew older, she began to understand the world in her own way. She developed a keen sense of hearing, touch, and intuition. She learned to navigate spaces independently, to recognize people by their voice, and to understand emotions through tone and gesture. The man encouraged this growth, always reminding her that her differences were strengths, and that with effort and guidance she could achieve anything she wanted. In quiet moments, the man reflected on their journey. He remembered the day he had taken her into his home, knowing little about raising a blind child. He had been scared, uncertain, and alone. Yet over time, love and commitment had transformed both of their lives. The child had become his purpose, and he had become her protector, teacher, and guide. Their bond was unbreakable, rooted in trust, care, and unwavering support. Through patience, hard work, and unwavering love, the man had created a home where the child could flourish. She had grown into a confident, intelligent, and resilient young girl, proud of who she was and equipped with the skills to navigate a challenging world. The man had shown her that family is not only about blood but about commitment, love, and the courage to stand by someone when the world doubts them. And so their story continued, not as one of weakness or misfortune, but as a story of hope, perseverance, and the quiet power of unconditional love. What had begun as a cruel joke had become a remarkable journey of growth, trust, and triumph over adversity. The child had found her place in the world, and the man had found a purpose greater than he had ever imagined. A life dedicated to nurturing, protecting, and shaping a young life into one full of possibility. The years passed, and the child continued to grow into a young girl full of energy, curiosity, and determination. Her steps became confident, her voice clear and expressive, and her mind sharp. Though she could not see, her perception of the world had deepened. She could identify people by the sound of their footsteps, sense changes in the weather, and recognize spaces she had never explored with her own eyes. The man watched her carefully, guiding her when necessary but allowing her the independence she had earned. The town, which had once whispered cruelly about the baby, now looked at her differently. People began to respect both the man and the child. They had witnessed the bond between them, the care, and the dedication the man had given her. Slowly, admiration replaced judgment. Some neighbors approached the man to offer help, advice, or simply to acknowledge his effort. Children who had once avoided her now played with her, learning to communicate in ways that included her rather than excluded her. At home, the man continued to teach her life skills. He showed her how to cook simple meals, how to clean and organize her surroundings, and how to navigate the town safely on her own. These lessons went beyond mere survival. They were lessons in independence, confidence, and self-respect. He wanted her to know that being blind did not limit her potential and that she could achieve anything she set her mind to. Education became a central part of their lives. The man worked tirelessly to ensure she had access to learning opportunities. He found teachers who specialized in blind education and sourced materials adapted to her needs. She learned to read Braille, listen carefully to lessons, and use her other senses to understand concepts that might otherwise have been inaccessible. Her mind was curious, and she absorbed knowledge eagerly. The man supported her every step, guiding her when she struggled and celebrating every success, no matter how small. Despite her progress, there were challenges. The child sometimes faced moments of frustration when she could not do something as easily as others. She occasionally overheard cruel remarks or felt excluded in social settings. But the man was always there to remind her of her strengths. He explained that everyone faces challenges and that perseverance, patience, and courage are what make a person truly strong. Slowly, she learned to face adversity with resilience, understanding that her worth was not defined by what she could not do, but by how she embraced life. The man also encouraged her creativity. She developed a love for music and storytelling. She learned to play simple instruments and to recite stories she created herself. Her imagination became a powerful tool, allowing her to experience the world in ways that were uniquely her own. The man supported these interests, often participating in her activities, listening to her stories, and helping her refine her skills. These moments brought joy, laughter, and a sense of normalcy into their lives. As she grew older, the man made plans for her future. He knew that she could not remain entirely dependent on him forever. He began teaching her practical skills for adulthood, money management, decision-making, communication, and problem-solving. He introduced her to mentors and professionals who could provide guidance in areas where he lacked expertise. His goal was not only to protect her, but to empower her to live independently and confidently. The child, inspired by the trust and guidance of the man, began to dream bigger. She imagined a life where she could help others, share her knowledge, and prove that blindness was not a barrier to achievement. She wanted to study, to work, and to participate in her community fully. The man encouraged these ambitions, reminding her that determination, education, and hard work could open doors that others might consider closed. Their home remained a sanctuary, a place of safety, learning, and unconditional love. Every corner carried memories of milestones, her first steps, first words, first successful lessons. The man often reflected on their journey, amazed at how much both of them had grown. What had begun as an unexpected responsibility had become a partnership built on trust, care, and shared purpose. Outside the home, the town slowly embraced them. People who had once mocked or doubted them now treated them with respect. Teachers, neighbors, and even strangers acknowledged the child's abilities and her remarkable spirit. The man's dedication had shown them the true meaning of compassion, patience, and human decency. Slowly, the negative whispers faded, replaced by admiration and support. One day, the man and the child walked through the town square. She confidently navigated the streets, calling out greetings to familiar faces and responding politely to strangers. People stopped to admire her composure and cheerfulness. Children played nearby, and she joined them effortlessly, her laughter blending with theirs. The man felt a deep sense of pride and satisfaction. He knew that the child he had taken in as a burden had become a source of inspiration for everyone around her. Education and personal growth continued to be priorities. The child excelled in her studies, showing intelligence, creativity, and determination. She participated in community activities, helped others, and became a voice for those who were often overlooked. Her life was a testament to what could be achieved with love, patience, and unwavering support. The man continued to guide her, always emphasizing values of kindness, courage, and integrity. He shared life lessons not through lectures but through example, showing her how to navigate challenges, treat others with respect, and embrace the world confidently. Through this, the child learned that true strength comes from character, perseverance, and compassion. Years later, the child had grown into a young adult. She was confident, educated, and skilled, able to navigate the world independently while maintaining the deep bond with the man who had raised her. She had transformed the cruel beginnings of her life into a story of resilience, success, and inspiration. The town, once cruel and judgmental, now admired her courage and the man's dedication. They had witnessed a life transformed not by circumstance but by love, patience, and commitment. The man, who had once been mocked for taking in a blind child, was now celebrated for his courage, dedication, and wisdom. He had given her more than a home. He had given her identity, opportunity, and a future. Through his guidance, she had grown into a strong, independent, and compassionate individual. Their story became known in the community as one of hope and triumph. What had started as a cruel joke ended as a powerful example of human kindness and perseverance. The child had found her place in the world, and the man had found a purpose greater than he had ever imagined. Together, they showed that love, dedication, and belief in another person could overcome adversity, transform lives, and inspire everyone who witnessed their journey. In the end, their lives were a testament to the truth that family is not always defined by blood but by love, protection, and shared courage. The child had been given life under cruel circumstances, but she had been given much more by the man who chose to love her, raise her, and help her flourish. Their story was one of triumph, resilience, and unwavering hope, a story that would remain a source of inspiration for generations to come.